Hello everybody, welcome back to a new episode of Let's Talk Elvis, and welcome to the health discussions.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of the things that happened from my side of the story. There's been a lot written and a lot said about what happened to me, but never from my side.
So I study behavior at a university level constantly for one of my degrees. And since then, I use those studies every single day in my career, but also all the time in my studies about Elvis Presley. Behavior is anything but simple to understand, as everybody's is different, obviously, and impacted by different factors. But stating what behavior essentially is pretty simple: the way somebody acts. While it may be simple to define, behavior is constantly under scrutiny, especially when it isn't even our own. Oftentimes we see a behavior and immediately find ourselves making these decisions and implications based upon what we are viewing visually. How many times have you seen someone doing something and find yourself making a decision about them without even realizing it? Maybe you're seeing a child throwing a tantrum in a store and your brain goes, oh, they're so spoiled. What a brat. Their parents have no control over them. Or you might find a person who's very quiet and they keep to themselves, and your brain might think, they're kind of strange. They don't like me very much. They don't talk to people very much. They must be lonely. Or you see somebody who is an addict. Your brain might say, oh, well, they're lazy and they're unhappy and they're unable to get control over their lives. This is natural, even though it's unfortunate. We all see certain behaviors and we make assumptions based off of our own experiences and what goes on in our own individual minds. Something that is far less natural for human beings to understand, however, is that all behavior has a why. Even if it's not immediately apparent, there's a reason behind every single behavior, no matter what it is, how extreme or how mild. For example, if you're sitting and you're in the middle of listening to a presentation and you really have to go to the bathroom, you are less likely to just sit there for hours and hours on end comfortably. You're more likely to become fidgety and restless and eventually get up out of your seat, walk to the bathroom, go to the bathroom, and then come back and sit back down. Those actions are a direct result of what your body needs. If a nonverbal child, a child that has no words, stung by a bee and has zero communication in order to tell somebody what's wrong with them, they might start to act out in extreme behavior, maybe even become aggressive as they are in pain, and that is the way that their own body is able to communicate that. Those actions are a direct result of what their body is needing. Those actions don't necessarily mean that you are bored with the presenter and that you can't sit through the whole presentation and you have to get up and excuse yourself and take a break, that you can't sit through what they have to say. And those actions don't necessarily mean that you're dealing with this wild child that acts out in extreme ways and is unable to control their emotions. Understanding a behavior is learning about that behavior and what triggers it, not immediately labeling that behavior or that person. So when we think of behavior, we should always be asking ourselves, what makes us do what we do? This is a major part of therapy. It's acquiring knowledge about your learned behaviors and understanding what leads you to make the decisions that you make, or perform the actions that you do, or what makes you think the thoughts that you think. There are often 4 functions of behavior. Escape, which basically just means that you're trying to escape something, you're trying to get away from something. Attention, doing something because you are craving attention from somebody that you're lacking. Tangibility, you need something physically. And sensory, you need to feel something. Sometimes it's not just one of those things present at one time. It can be multiple and sometimes all at once. Which is to say, there could be many, many different reasons why you're performing a behavior. So you might be asking yourself at this point, Mary, what does all this have to do with Elvis Presley and his health? And my answer is actually everything. Elvis was an addict. I'm not denying that. He abused medications by taking them in excessive amounts. He suffered from a drug dependency. But his why is so important. And that's what should be focused on. Addicts are generalized so often by saying, well, if they would just stop taking the drugs, things would be so much different for them. Every person that struggles with an addiction has a root cause and a reason why they feel the need to continue that behavior, a reason why it all started. And Elvis is no different. He has a why, and it deserves to be listened to and to be understood. While addiction in and of itself can be related case to case, it's important to keep in mind here that Elvis wasn't doing illegal street drugs. Elvis was taking prescription medications. While abusing pills is just as serious as abusing white powder or needles, Elvis wasn't continuing his behaviors to feel a high. He was spiraling out of control to try and stay in control, to survive, and to try to mute these horrible pains and these sufferings that his body was experiencing, to try to keep being Elvis Presley. I want us to keep something in mind as we explore this topic of health and addiction, and that is that no one's story with addiction starts because of nothing. There's always a reason, always a root, always understanding to be achieved when we're talking about something as serious as addiction. Very, very rarely are we ever only talking about somebody who's just inherently destined to be bad. Whenever we're talking about somebody's behavior or psychology, there is always a why. Sometimes it's not black and white, and oftentimes it's very, very complicated to try to understand, especially when you're on the outside looking in. Because I didn't share his mind, and I can't say with 100% certainty what he was thinking or what he was feeling 24/7. But I can gather puzzle pieces to be able to make educated and logical conclusions. And that's what this series is going to be able to do. I'll see you guys in the next episode, where we'll be discussing the beginning of it all by talking about Elvis's family tree and his genetics and how you can see early signs of trouble from the very, very start. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye-bye.